So my name is Brad Solomon. Like DJ said, I went to UNH for what seemed like a really, really long time because I would graduate with a degree and then I would miss it, and then I would go back for another one, and then I would miss it, and then I'd go back and teach. And right now I serve as an adjunct advisor to the Voice Z digital marketing agency at UNH. And I'm just having like the best time in the world doing that, and I love them, and feel so blessed to be able to be a part of that organization. And so, thank you guys very much for having me here today. Yeah, this is something that our agency does a lot of. We run a lot of social media, run a lot of social media advertising. And so I just kind of want to get into sort of some of the tips and tricks that we've identified over time, some of the pitfalls that we often find and help people to avoid when we are taking over their social media advertising, as well as, just some general guidelines as far as budgeting, because I think that, the running of ads in social, so Facebook and Instagram advertising, tends to be, a little bit more mysterious for a lot of people. But it's something that we really love, and that we've been able to create tremendous value for many clients doing. So I'm just going to kind of dive right into it. First of all, of course, we are SC Digital. We are based in Portsmouth, New Hampshire. We have clients really all over the globe, primarily in the New England area, just because that's where we do the majority of our networking and so on. But we're always looking to sort of expand that. I'm just going to go to the next slide here. So basically, as far as our agenda goes, I'm just going to kind of give you a little bit of an intro to what social media advertising is, and sort of some pitfalls to avoid just right before we get started, some mistakes that people often make that we want to try and help people avoid. I think that a lot of times people think of their marketing as an expense, but we really want people to think of it as more of an investment that should have a clear return on investment. And so just gauging what that return is, what your goal is, what your objective is very, very important before you even spend dollar number one. So we'll talk a little bit about that and how to really positively affect that. Also, how to set up your budget, how to evaluate what you're doing, and then I'll leave a little bit of time at the end for some Q&A as well. So how do we build a winning social media ad campaign? First of all, let's talk about what we don't want to do. Okay, and I'm sure that Sarah and Nicole from Social HQ would echo all of this. If you're going to do any of this, you really need to go in with a plan and a strategy. What are you ultimately trying to accomplish? Too many times we see clients or people that aren't clients sort of put up Facebook posts, run Facebook ads with no true strategy, no real plan, no objective as to what they're really looking to accomplish. They're just sort of doing it because they feel that they should, or they feel like they're supposed to do it. So they put up an ad, or they put up a post every once in a while. And then if it didn't work, they sort of go, well, I tried it, it didn't work. So obviously, the platform is the problem, or the audience is the problem, right? And I'm here to tell you that it is definitely not going to work unless you go into it with some sort of a plan. So that's what we're here to do, is to sort of help clients identify what their goals are and execute on that plan. Number two, using the boost button. Facebook, Instagram, all these different platforms, even Google Ads, which we do a lot of, they've all made it really easy for you to give them your money. It's just that simple. If you want to get your word out there more, you just click the blue button and put your credit card number in there, and there's some basic criteria. And that is typically the least effective way to use your social media advertising budget, is using the boost button. There is a huge world of advertising options that I'm going to kind of show you in a little bit here that are not available if all you're doing is boosting posts. Boosting posts are good for getting engagement, but they are typically not very good for getting the phone to ring or for achieving your objective. So we say don't use it. If you're going to run ads, either learn how to do it right or hire somebody to do it right for you, but don't just try to take the easy way out, because that is not the most effective thing for you. It's probably the most effective way for the platform. It's probably the most effective thing for Facebook and Instagram and Google and so on, but it is not the most effective thing for the advertiser. Choosing the wrong objective. So earlier we heard about engagement rate, and engagement is one objective that you can have for your ads. Other objectives include generating leads, generating inbound messages, generating video views, just reaching a huge audience of people, generating purchases on your website. These are all different objectives that you define at the beginning of your campaign. And they govern the types of people that Facebook and Instagram will show your ad to, because everybody behaves a little bit differently on the platform. So what you need to do is choose the objective that is going to get you the result that you really want. And more on that later. Forgetting to track your conversions. So I'll show you a slide in a little while where if it's somebody that's trying to sell a particular good or service using social media advertising, you must track how often those sales actually take place. Number one, because it helps you evaluate your return on investment. Number two, tracking those actions feeds data and information back to social media platforms so that they can go out and create more of those actions for you. That is really how these platforms work. It's mind-boggling, but they optimize based on what you're ultimately looking to achieve. But you have to communicate with the platforms as to what you want to achieve before they can start to create more of those actions for you. So you have to track conversions by way of the Facebook pixel and setting up your proper events on your website and so on. And then failing to plan for success. Like, don't do this and generate leads and phone calls and engagement and so on, and likes and comments and shares if you're not going to actually respond to those things. Or if you're not going to actually handle the leads when they come in, or if you're not going to pick up the phone when it rings, right? So if you do this right, it probably will work. There's no guarantee, but it probably will work. So plan for it to work and be ready, because once the phone starts to ring and the leads start to come in, there's no faster way to turn customers off than to just not respond to those things. So plan for success. Number one, this is about running ads in social media, right? So it's less about posting, and it's less about doing all the very, very important things that Sarah and Nicole talked about on their presentation. This is about actual advertising. So I'm here to tell you that in just about every type of advertising, what tends to make the most impact, what tends to matter the most is the offer. Good advertising can't really overcome, in many instances, a bad offer or an offer that nobody cares that much about. And by the same token, bad advertising can be overlooked if the offer is very, very good. So the main thing that you want to be doing if you're running social media ads is figure out what your offer actually is and why your client or your potential customer should care about your offer. So an example, right, is I don't want to just put an ad out there and ask people to join my email list, because there's nothing in it for them to do that. Yes, you're going to attach some copy about what they get when they join the email list as far as tips in their inbox and recipes and so on and so forth, but give them a reason to do it today. Give them 10% off their first purchase, or give them a downloadable ebook, something that's actually going to matter to them, right? And something that has very, very high value. I'm going to tell everybody right now, and I don't work for this company, but this book right here, it's called Sell Like Crazy, one of the best business books that I've ever read. And one of the things that he talks very, very highly about is defining an offer that would absolutely make your competitors stay up at night, that would keep your competitors up at night, that would actually get customers away from a competitor into your business. It's that good. And if you don't have an offer that's that good, then you need to try to figure one out, because that is the kind of thing that can completely differentiate you from everybody else and take potential customers out of the market before your competitors even realize that they were ever in the market, right? And so that's what we want to do. We want to really do a good job with figuring out what that offer is ahead of time. Here's some examples. So these are some clients that we've worked with. Either we've worked with them in the past or we work with them now. So I'm going to start over here on the left. This is our client, Southers Construction. He wanted to basically wants to position himself as the go-to person in the roofing industry in the local area, right? So what are we going to do? We're going to give people things that they should ask their roofing contractor for. It's free. There's no obligation. That's it. But at least next time you go asking for a roofing contractor, you'll know the questions to ask, and you'll know some of the tips and tricks that maybe they use, right, to get you to pay too much for your roof. So that is acting to essentially position Southers Construction as the authority in the space, which is ultimately what we wanted them to do. because that generates more phone calls in the future and has all kinds of positive effects. Number two, so this is something that was pretty revolutionary. This offer right here took this company from, I mean, I don't want to give away facts and figures or anything like that, but took them from being a company of a certain degree of success to basically 10xing that success simply by thinking about standby generators in a different way. Because usually generators cost $10,000 and it's really hard to part with that money because you don't know if you're going to actually ever use this thing. But if you break it up and you make it a monthly payment, then everybody can pretty much afford to have one of these, right? And so what they did is they took people out of the market before they ever even went into the market. They created a market for themselves, essentially, of people that weren't even necessarily thinking, geez, I need a standby generator. But you know what? If I can get one for $100 a month, why would I ever want to live without one? That was basically the goal of this. And we give people a really sort of a fun image that basically shows a hurricane heading toward you or a snowstorm heading toward you, kind of stops the thumb, stops the scroll. And that's the idea. We were trying to build the email list for Top Notch Inn, which is our client up in northern New Hampshire. They attract a lot of people that do four-wheeling and snowmobiling and so on because it's in Gorham and the White Mountains. Beautiful. So we said, well, what do those people all want? Well, what they want is a map so that they don't get lost and they can see where all of the restaurants are and so on. So we created a map. You know, we hired a company to build a PDF map. We branded it with a Top Notch Inn logo, and we made it available for free for download for basically anybody. And we were getting email addresses at about $1.50 a piece while we were doing this. And it proved to be very successful because now people who are in the target audience have this piece of content in front of them, and it has Top Notch Inn's name on it. And we can now market to those people and say, hey, by the way, if you're interested in four-wheeling this week, we have a sale going on, or, you know, we have room rates at 75% or whatever the case may be. But a lot of good things happen when you have a bigger email address list and you're using it. So these are just offers that have worked well in the past. There's an unlimited number that you can have that you can use. These are just some that have worked well. At the beginning, we talked about objectives and defining the correct objectives. Now, if you've never been in the Facebook and Instagram ads manager before, you basically can choose any of these different objectives before you even start running your ads. So for instance, brand awareness and reach, that just basically means, hey, I want to reach everybody that I possibly can who fits within these target demos, maybe 18 to 25-year-olds who live in a particular area, right? Because I'm an oil company and I'm trying to get them before they actually buy their house. Who knows? But that would just be to reach as many people as possible. And then in the middle here, I want to get as many people to my website as possible. So I would choose the traffic objective. And then that'll target people who tend to be more clicky when they're on the platforms. Or maybe I want an engagement on my ad. So I want a lot of likes and shares and comments and so on and so forth. So I might use that as an objective, and we'll show you that later on. Or maybe I want a lot of conversions, right? So I'm trying to sell a product, or I'm trying to get people to come into my salon and get their hair done, or I'm trying to get people to order from my restaurant. And all of that is tracked on my website, so I can track conversions. So I might choose that objective on the right. So choosing the correct objective is very, very important. It is not about hitting the boost button, right? It is not about just saying, I don't know, I just want to have everybody see my ad. No, that is the wrong way to go about it. Figure out what you want, figure out what you want to accomplish, and choose the right objective. So let's start with a couple of them. So over here, I have an ad for Crocs. Crocs is not our client. I mean, you know, we have like 1,100 pairs of Crocs at our house. And so I just decided to use them as an example. So what their objective is purchases, right? They are trying to get as many people to come to their website and purchase, or at least that should be their objective. They're using a shop now button. Technically, they could be just trying to drive traffic, but that wouldn't make sense. If that is what they were doing, I would want to know why. I would interview their agency about that. They should be trying to drive people to the website who are most likely to purchase. In the agency, we've talked about two different customers. There's my wife, who buys a lot of things online. You know, she would probably tell you too many things. I say she can have whatever she wants because she's a queen. But she buys a lot of stuff online. So if Crocs is trying to sell something today, then she would be a really good person for them to be targeting. Now, on the other hand, there are other people who just visit a lot of websites, but they don't technically buy a lot of things. They just do a lot of window shopping, so to speak. So they probably wouldn't fit within that conversion objective because they don't convert. They just click. They just drive traffic, right? And so if I'm trying to reach that person, then I probably would have chosen the traffic objective on the last slide. So there's two different types of, there's many different types of behavior, but those are two different types of behavior, and we can tap into those behaviors depending on what we're ultimately looking to accomplish. Over here on the right, so this is a client of ours, right? What we're trying to do here is we're trying to generate inbound messages, because that is how they create sales, is by generating inbound messages. And so what this ad is going to do is it's going to target people who typically are going to be more likely to send a message than just visit a website, or they're more comfortable sending a message than visiting a sales page and actually buying something, because we're trying to create leads, and that is how their value chain works. So that's what we target. So very, very important to choose the right objective that works for your business goals and that works for the infrastructure that you have set up. Next, we're going to talk a little bit about just knowing who your audience even is, right? So that you can target, because there's so many different types of targeting that you can do. There's so many different types of people that you can target. I mean, you can get as granular as you want, or you can get as broad as you want. But you kind of have to have some semblance of an idea. Otherwise, Facebook's going to be, they're going to target the entire 2 billion people that are on the platform, on Facebook and Instagram. And that's probably not a very good use of your money. So for our hotel, for instance, yes, we want to target people that are within 50 miles of Gorham, New Hampshire. We also want to target people who have an interest in snowmobiling, who have an interest in four-wheeling, right? Who are maybe members of groups that do those things. And then we also may want to target some different cities and towns who like to go up to the White Mountains because it's just beautiful up there, right? Or maybe they've traveled there before. And so we would know that based on maybe their own web search history, right? Other hotels that they have checked out online and so on. So these are the different kinds of ways that you want to be setting up your targeting. And here's what that looks like. So when you're setting up your targeting, you can choose the location that you want. You would choose the age, the gender, the language, and then you have all these other criteria. So what demographic, what's the interest targeting that you're going after for these people? What types of behaviors do they have? Where do they work? What is their political affiliation? What books do they read? What podcasts do they listen to? What university do they attend or did they attend? So there's so many different ways that you can go about this. We were looking at one yesterday, and I think it was a cooking website. And when I was looking at the cooking website, I later on, I ended up getting targeted by a bunch of cooking ads in my social media feeds. Why? Because social media now thinks that I'm interested in cooking, even though I'm terrible at it. I just happened to be on a website earlier that day, so I was temporarily pegged as somebody that was interested in cooking. And these are all things that we can do with the targeting if it is set up properly. 4, select an ad format that your audience is actually going to care about, that they're going to engage with, right? There's so many different things we can do. We can do videos, we can do photo sets, we can do single photos. So over here on the left side, this is my wife. This is my queen, right? So we were running ads for Super Potty Trainer, who maybe you've seen Super Potty Trainer before. They were on Shark Tank last year. They won on the season finale. I think they were actually the last ones that got an offer at the end there from, I think, Damon and I can't remember who else, Lori, Damon and Lori. So anyways, right, this is a video that was made to be candid. It was made to be sort of, hey, listen, my kids, I was having a hard time potty training them. I got this Super Potty Trainer, problem solved, right? This video actually got a ton of engagement, a ton of shares, people going, wow, how much is this thing? And visiting the website. And so this really worked well for, handling some of the objections that people often have, or some of the concerns that people often have when it comes to potty training their children, right? In the middle here, this is another client of ours. This is the Takeout Guys. Something that really works well in social media, as many of you probably know anyway, is food photos. Food and dogs, as a matter of fact, tend to be the two most engaging things that you can be putting on social media. So I like to advertise food photos with multiple photos in a set, because that creates a lot of free engagement. That creates a lot of, hey, people flipping through to sort of see what's next. So I like to run engagement ads like that when I'm just sort of looking for some reach. And then on the right-hand side here, this is a dog daycare that we work with, a training academy that we work with up in Berwick. And, look, like I said, I'm just going to tell you that a dog in an ad tends to be one of the most engaging pictures that you can use. So to the extent that you can, feature dogs in your ads. And I learned that from my mother, who actually created a dog rescue called Mary's Dogs and literally grew that Facebook page from 0 to like 25,000 followers, and basically only did any business, was only ever able to adopt any dogs using Facebook. So it was really cool and a very good lesson to learn. So anyways, the point of this is use an ad type that your audience will engage with. That's what we care. That's what we care about the most. I think I just skipped a slide. No, I didn't. Okay. Number 5, use concise, clear copy. And I think that this goes for anything that you're doing, whether it's a social media ad or whether it's a Google ad or whether you're writing an article or whatever it is that you're doing, a press release. Your copy needs to be clear, and it's always a good idea to start with the problem. So every one of us is experiencing problems, and social media gives you a really good opportunity to be able to target people based on the problems that we know they're experiencing. So everybody is experiencing problems, and a very good way to sort of call out and get to the heart of what is important to your audience is to talk about their problem first. And we know this, right? Because we see the TV commercials, these big ad agencies, they figured this out a long time ago. If we can get to your problem, if we can agitate that problem, and then if we can position our offering as a way to solve that problem quickly, in a manner that gets you to stop your thumb and actually read the ad copy, that's going to be a winning ad. So problems are great to start. And then also questions for obvious purposes, for obvious reasons, get people thinking. So if you're writing an ad, consider starting with the problem statement or the question, and even putting people in an audience with others, right? So many people feel this, or many people struggle with this, or in our experience, many clients start with this or struggle with this problem. Very, very good ways to let people know that, hey, they're not alone. And by the way, here's how that problem has been solved in the past, this product. So here's an example of just some different ad copies that we've done. So over here on the left side, this is LaPlante Electric. Remember the generators from earlier? Turns out they also wanted to be doing heat pumps, selling heat pumps. And everybody had asked, like, what's a heat pump? And so I would try to get into this explanation as we were doing these ads, and I'm trying to explain what it is and how the technology works, and it changes from hot to cold and with a remote and all this stuff. And then finally my 5-year-old asked me, what's a heat pump, Daddy? What's a heat pump? And I said, if I can't explain this thing to a 5-year-old, then there's no way that anybody else is going to be able to understand it. So I basically said, hey, it's a box that hangs on the wall and it blows cold air into the room when it's hot out. And it blows hot air into the room when it's cold out. She's like, that's cool. That sounds like a good idea, right? And so then we created an animated video where she and I did the voiceover together, and that's supposed to be her, and that's our cat. And it just basically answers that question, like, what's a heat pump and why is it going to positively affect me? And as it turns out, there's a lot of people that have that same question. The second one here, this is Super Potty Trainer again, just, pretty clear copy, right? You can kind of see what has happened there. The poor little child has fallen into the toilet. And that is the problem that Super Potty Trainer solves, is that keeps the kid from falling into the toilet, which is going to scare them into never being potty trained. So, we clearly state the problem. We express empathy. We get it. Potty training is hard work. And it's pretty clear what's going on in this picture. It's got to be fast. And then on the right-hand side here, right, we're starting with a question. Look, let's face it. We all want something fun that we can do with our kids that sort of generates a lot of just goodwill amongst the family, gets them out into the community, keeps them in shape, and also helps them to defend themselves against bullies, especially right now. So now we're going to position ourselves in a way at Henzo Gracie NH where we are the solution to what you're asking for, right? A family activity that's fun and helps kids avoid bullying and do better in school and so on. And then, of course, like I said before, it's a photo set so people can quickly scroll through, and they tend to work really well. Here's a few more examples for you, because I love showing examples, right? I think that they tend to get the mind going a little bit more. Over on the left side, again, generator ad, but this is very, very clear. Bring it was essentially the tagline that we used when we're talking about, hey, here's what we want you to feel when you know that there's a storm coming. Bring it, no problem, because I got a generator. So I'm not scared of you anymore, right? I'm not scared of power outages anymore. As a father, I'm not scared that, you know, all of a sudden my kids are going to be freaking out. My wife's going to be asking, hey, why didn't you get that generator when you had the chance, right? You can solve that problem right now. Anybody from the area that's in the area, like if you haven't tried Sweet Chicks fried chicken, you really should. It's some of the best food you'll ever have. You know, again, we're just basically trying to get people involved, engaged. So we give them a lot of different pictures that they can choose from. Smiling faces tend to be very engaging. So this one up in the top left-hand corner with the Sweet Chicks logo, it's all just good stuff. And as you can see, it's gotten a ton of engagement. On the right-hand side here, this is actually a lead generation ad that we're running for a company called YOLO TVs. And what they do is they sell TVs that are the size of elephants for your backyard. So if you need to see a TV that, you know, is basically, you know, you've got a big, huge pool, or like you're these guys out in Vegas, and, you know, you can spend 30, 40 grand on a TV, which, you know, many people can, especially since they're doing financing. It basically just gives people an opportunity to flip through these ads and see the different ways that these TVs can be used. By the way, if anybody wants one of these, I can hook you up with the guy. He's really good people. So let's talk about budgeting, right? Because I think a lot of times people get kind of freaked out, like, how much should I spend on social media advertising? And I get that. And it is a moving target. So there's two different ways that we typically go about the budgeting conversation. Number one, you take what you're trying to make and then you back it down into what you can afford to spend in order to make that money. So let's just say, for instance, you're trying to make another $100,000 this year in gross revenue or net profit, you know, whatever, however you're evaluating your return, you take that and then you just start at 20% of that number, and then you break it up on a monthly and a daily basis, right? So if that number is, hey, I'm trying to get to an extra 10 grand a month, then you need to be spending potentially $2,000 a month on ads. So that breaks down to about I don't know, 90 bucks a day, maybe, maybe 60 bucks a day. And that's what you're going to want to spend, right? And then you're going to want to track the results of that spend right down to the penny, so that at the end of the month, if you go, hey, geez, I did. I made another $10,000 a month on these ads. Then you can go, perfect. Now I know that I could actually spend $4,000 a month and potentially make $20,000. That's what you want. That's called scalability. Now the second one here is a little less scientific. And sometimes when I have a client, they don't know what they want to make. They don't even know what their goal should be. They often haven't even thought about it. They just know that they want to sell more, and they know that they can handle, you know, maybe an extra 25 orders a week. And so we go, all right, let's start at a number then that will not cause you to lose sleep at night, right? So let's act like we're in a casino, which in a way we are, right? Because there's no guarantee here. But of course, in a casino, a seasoned gambler is probably going to do better than somebody that, like me, who has no idea, who's never even, you know, played at the roulette table. But, you know, and it's the same way here. There's certain things that we know are going to work better than others. So let's just say you were going into the advertising casino. What could you afford to invest and not lose an entire month's worth of sleep? Okay, good. That number's $1,000 a month. Excellent. So we're going to spend $1,000 a month, invest $1,000 a month over the next 3 months, or $2,000 a month over the next 3 months. And then we're going to evaluate our progress at the end of that 3 months. And we're going to make changes and tweaks and communicate along the way. But I don't want you being nervous about all this, because you already said a second ago that you can put this into your company and buy yourself some data. So here's how the roll down would work. Let's just say we're talking about our roofer from earlier. Like, let's just say that roofing company has a $2,000 ads budget. So you kind of know how this works, right? I mean, this is pretty much like basic 6th grade level math, I guess, right? So if at the end of the month, right, I've got 6 new roof installations, you know, and I've made $30,000 net profit, then I have a 500% ROI basically on my ads budget after the 3 months is up. So what are we going to do next? Well, the question shouldn't at that point be, how much should I spend on ads? The question at that point, and this is the point that we want every client to get to, shouldn't be how much should I spend on ads? It should be, how much can I possibly spend on ads before I start to experience a diminishing marginal return, which all of us remember from freshman year economics, I believe, right? Or maybe micro, maybe macro. I can't remember. It's been like 20 years. But There is a point of diminishing return where you've already sold a roof to everybody, or everybody that owns a house has already bought a roof from you, and now you need to wait another few years to get that next jolt of homeowners. We know what that is, but for most clients, that is way, way off in the distance. So the goal should be you get to a point where you want to scale that ad spend because you have a specific return on investment that happens as a result of that ad spend. So it's not a matter of how much should I spend, it's how much can I spend, and how many dollars can I bring back into my business from that spend. That's what we're going for. So that is my time. I am happy to answer any questions for you. And again, I really appreciate everybody, you guys having me here today. And I love this stuff and I love UNH, and, by all means, fire away if you have questions.
All right. Thank you, Brad. That was awesome. I really enjoyed that. I thought we did have a couple of questions come in, and we'll see if any more come in, but okay. What I found really interesting too, is the focus, the focus on sale, but there's a journey associated with that, right? Sure. So not everything is going for that sale. You're not going to convert somebody to buy a roof online, right? Right? Or generator. So it's about the journey and kind of identifying the steps in the buying journey,
right?
Which I think is really smart, and just to reinforce that message, right? That this is progress. So do you have any examples? So this is just me asking it, but like the roof contractor you talked about the generators as examples. Mm-hmm. Do you have examples of like, did you work with them to kind of map out, or even the hotel, right, with the trail guide? Do you kind of map out the journey and what would you consider to be a good quote unquote conversion or success, from like maybe an email address? And so kind of an open-ended question, but does it make any sense what I'm saying?
100%. Yeah. So one thing I won't ever do is set a client up to fail. So as a, for instance, with the client LaPlante Electric that we talked about, they've really at this point now, after a few years working with us, and, they have now become, kind of the preeminent generator supplier in all of Maine. Mm-hmm. And they're the ones that are doing the heavy lifting. Like, we're not going to take credit for that. They're the ones that are going out there and installing, they're closing the deals and so on. But having the phone ring and having a scalable business model really helps. But here's the thing. If they didn't have the ingredients in place to be able to handle all that additional volume, if they didn't have people answering the phones, if they didn't have people responding to Facebook chats, if they didn't have people calling the leads back, if they didn't have a good sales process, if they didn't have people to go out there and actually run these calls, then they wouldn't be able to take advantage of this. This would just be a huge waste of money for them. Mm-hmm. By the same token, one of our clients owns a hair salon. Look, if you don't have anybody and they used to do massage and they don't do massage anymore because they lost their masseuse. Look, I could drive massage business into your salon all you want. If you don't have anybody there to handle it, then it's a huge waste of money for you. So we would shy away from that. So we work a lot with our clients to understand not just what can they do, but also what makes them the most money. We'll go back to Souther's construction there for a second. So they do 5 main things: roofing, siding, windows, doors, and decks. So the profit margin on a roof is significant, right? The profit margin for them, not for everybody. The profit margin on installing new windows is not good for them, not because it isn't good margin, but just because of the number of people that are required to do it, and the degree to which they now have a stronghold on the roofing industry. It's like if they have somebody doing windows on a day that could be doing a roof, they're actually losing money maybe on that deal, right? So we're very cognizant of what do you really make the most money on, because that's the stuff that's going to give us the highest profit per order, and therefore give you the ability to invest the most in your advertising and grow your company the fastest. So we really kind of want to know those things. And by the same token, look, if we generate an email address for you, like lots of people say, I got to build my email list. Yeah, why? well, what are you doing with it? What's the goal when you get that email address? Are we sending a newsletter once a month? Are we sending an email blast quarterly? Are we sending something multiple times a week, like many of the e-commerce retailers out there? And how is that going to be generating sales? So what does the overall ecosystem look like? Mm-hmm. And how does it all support the bottom line of the business? Because at the end of the day, that's really all that matters in most cases, whether it's a for-profit entity or whether it's a nonprofit organization. It's mostly about that. So we need to know where that's all coming from before we start investing. And that also gets back to slide number 1, which is don't start doing this unless you have a plan. Don't just say I need to build my email list just for the heck of it. Just to say I've got an email list with 1,000 people on it is not it's worthless unless you can use it to generate sales.
Yeah, good. Yeah. Chris just put in a question. Chris we appreciate your engagement today. So the question is Facebook boost post gives same criteria for boosting gender interest as placing an ad. You say don't boost, but buy ads. How are they different?
So, well, first of all, one of the ways that they're different is I'll give you an example. So having the interface, and I'm zoomed in here so that you can't see the names of the clients, right? But unless you're using the actual ads manager and becoming familiar with the actual ads manager, you don't get this type of data, right? So for instance, this is a food delivery service that we do business with. And this is actually keyed into their website, and it is evaluating how many purchases the ads have actually generated, right? Sitting there and boosting a post isn't really going to give you that. And yes, you do have the same targeting criteria, but last I checked, and I could be wrong because again, I don't use the boost post. I don't use the boost button very often at all. But there's I think like 2 or 3 different objectives. There's maybe engagement and messages and maybe one other one. But in the actual ads manager, you have reach, brand awareness, traffic, video views, inbound messages, lead generation, conversions, store sales, all these different things. And that button doesn't really give you that. It doesn't really give you that degree of customization, right? And as an advertiser, as a technician, you do kind of want that. But this is really where the rubber meets the road right here. Being able to understand exactly what is going on and being able to add different columns and be able to really understand what's the engagement rate on these ads, which ones are performing well, which ones are performing poorly. I can create a campaign that basically goes to one section, but I can create 9 or 10 different ads underneath that campaign, right? So setting up a campaign structure that really gives you all that information is just simply not something that the boost button gives you. And if I'm investing a client's money for them, I want to be able to say, hey, listen, we tested 5 different ads to the same audience. This one worked the best, or these 2 worked the best. And these 3 over here were just useless. So I think we should scale out using these 2 over here. And so that's just kind of the tip of the iceberg. The other thing too is that you want to be in the business manager. You want to be in the Facebook business manager so that if you want to delegate some of that responsibility, maybe to other people in your organization or to an agency or whatever have you, you can do that. And not setting up business manager, not using the ads manager really doesn't give you a great ability to do those things. So that's kind of tip of the iceberg, but those are some of the main reasons.
Cool. Yeah. So Chris, thank you. He wrote in perfect. Thanks. So I think that answered that. And so that is a good question. So we have about 5 minutes left before we're going to switch over to our next speaker, just making sure that we have all the questions. So looks like that's all from the audience. I had one more question for you, and this is probably not a great answer, but it's just something I think about. So like the examples you gave were like a roof contractor or the dog school or the potty training, like those are kind of what I would consider to be like trigger events. Like, when you're talking about the targeting and building out your audience list, how do you find, how are you able to target those people, like people that might need a new roof or people that just got a new dog or people that have young children, versus some of the other things like a Sweet Chicks, which would be kind of more generic around an address, for lack of a better word, or a zip code.
So there's a lot of different ways that you can do it. As an example, let's say I'm targeting people that we know need a new roof. they may not be exhibiting characteristics online. Like I can choose a targeting characteristic. I can say like interested in home improvements, or has been going to the Home Depot a lot lately and that kind of thing. And those kinds of targeting criteria do exist. But they're really not perfect, because as you said, like they don't necessarily know if it's a roof that person's looking for. So one of the techniques that we often use is we will actually show a video. So we'll take a video, maybe it's a 2-minute long video about roofing, and maybe it's the contractor up on a roof walking through, hey, you should look for this and this and this. Like if your flashing is all banged up like this, then it's only a matter of months before you start to deal with a leak. Or, hey, I'm up on a roof over here in Durham, and she called us out here to take a look at this, but I got to tell you, she's got plenty of life left on this roof. I can tell right here, she's probably got 5 or 6 years left, but she doesn't really need us. But so if your roof looks like this, you should be okay. Have us out if you want. So I'll put a video out there like that's engaging. Mm-hmm. And the cool thing about social media ads is that you can create audiences. So I might show that video to 100,000 people. Give 100,000 people the opportunity to watch that video. You're only going to get like 15 or 20,000 people that actually watch the video. Maybe like 15,000 watch the whole thing, and then 7,500 watch like or 30,000 watch half of it, and 15,000 watch the whole thing. Well, so we now know something about those people based on what we put out there. They're either just interested in watching somebody walk around on a roof, or somewhere in the back of their mind, they're going, yeah, my roof looks like it might be like ready. So then we may retarget the people that watch that video using a custom audience, which again is something that really is primarily best utilized through the ads manager. We'll create a custom audience, maybe people that watched 100% of this video of so-and-so walking up on the roof. And then we hit them with an offer. Hey, free roof inspection. If you're curious about whether your roof is going to implode on you, then you can have us out. We'll do a free inspection for you and just check for leaks. That way you can know whether or not, what you're dealing with. And by the way, we offer financing, $99 a month. If you're even worried about it at all, you can get in front of it. So we might come at it from a little bit of a different angle to try to identify who that audience even is. And then on the other hand, like on the Sweet Chicks end, yeah, you would think, well, you could just show that to everybody. But I don't know. I mean, if you were to actually poll their customers and you were to ask them a list of like 20 questions, you would probably find similarities between those customers. And Facebook actually does the same thing. So they find the similarities between your audience, and then they give us the ability to create this thing called a lookalike audience, which is essentially a way to electronically go out and find a lot of other people that have the same similarities as the ones that are in your core audience. So if these people all watch the same TV show, they read the same magazine, and they listen to the same podcast host, Facebook can actually go and find everybody else shares those things and market that company to those people too, because they're probably a similar, have a similar mindset. Very effective.
Yeah, that's a great answer, and that's really insightful. Thank you, Brad. All right, so it is now 10:44. So we have our next speaker coming on. So Brad, thank you so much. It's good to see you again. That was really great.
I'll see you at boot camp.